The Scam Villain's Self-Saving System. Chapter 63 A Trip to the South. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 63 A Trip to the South. The three different types of ancient demon blood were storms colliding within Shen Qingchu's body, locked together in a tangled web that was impossible to separate. Among them, Luo Binger's blood was holding together Shen Qingchu's five organs and protecting the veins connecting them. It suppressed Zhu Zhilang's blood, while just barely managing to contend with Tianlang Jun's. Alone, it tried to cover all three duties, facing off against its two enemies. This all inevitably took a great toll upon it. It would actually be best to let go of Tianlang Jun's poisonous blood, for there was absolutely nothing he could do. He turned to Luo Binger and spoke. Think carefully about this. If it continues like this, who do you think is going to fall first? Luo Binger's eyes shone with a deep-set worry, but a sense of helplessness began growing more and more. Finally, he backed off and replied, "You leave first." Tianlang Jun didn't have the slightest intention of graciously stepping aside for the younger man before him and said instead, "You first." Luo Binger instantly replied, "Fine." Tianlang Jun wore an inscrutable smile as he spoke. Sure enough. Quote, he turned towards Zhu Zhilang and said, "What to do? I don't know why whenever I see them, there's always this extremely unpleasant feeling that fills my heart." Zhu Zhilang nodded silently. Shen Qingchu knew this wouldn't end well for him, but he didn't want to drag anyone else down with him. His whole life, he'd always hated the kind of characters that just ended up becoming bargaining chips for others. If that was the kind of flimsy, delicate character role he was forced to play, he'd rather die. He clutched his hand over his heart and forced his face to remain neutral as he spoke. "Whatever your excellency would like to do to me, please, feel free. As you've said, after being forced to drink so many times, I should be getting used to it. But don't even think about seeking the flesh of Luo Binger. Luo Binger, if you agree to him, I will strike you down myself with the force of the heavens." Luo Binger protested, angrily but helplessly. "Shizun, you shut up," Shen Qingchu said. Tianlang Jun stared at him strangely. "Who said I wanted his flesh?" Shen Qingchu was left speechless. Tianlang Jun continued. "He can't compare to my own noble, handsome figure, so why would I want his flesh? Who said you were more handsome than him? Who put their seal of approval on this?" As penned by airplane shooting towards the sky himself, from heaven to hell, throughout every age known to man, there was none that could ever compare to Luo Binger. Whether young or old, everyone universally agreed on this number one most handsome man. Okay. Shen Qingchu's entire expression sunk in exasperation. "Then what exactly do you want?" Zhu Zhilang replied. "Junshang desires that sword." Tianlang Jun confirmed. "That's correct. I would like to present a gift to the human world, but I won't be able to without that sword." "Hey, so you want the protagonist's golden finger?" Shen Qingchu's entire mind was filled with thoughts of, "Keep dreaming," and, "You overestimate your own strength." Quote, he could only watch on as Luo Binger raised his hand and Zhu Zhilang lifted his arm in response. In that instant, the exchange was complete. It passed over like a storm, swiftly and decisively, without the slightest hesitation. Luo Binger demanded, "Now hand him over." Zhu Zhilang immediately transformed into a serpent and caught Shen Qingchu in his massive mouth. Tianlang Jun leaped up gracefully, laughing loudly as he rose. "You really believed that? Ha! The way he was acting right now was truly shameless. It was like an adult making a promise to trade with a child, taking away their toys, then turning around and pretending no such thing happened." Shen Qingchu suddenly felt quite indignant on behalf of Luo Binger, who was clearly being bullied. Even with the threat of a sharp fang right next to him, he couldn't help but ask pointedly, "You do know you're the adult here, right?" Tian Langjun sat straight on Zhu Zhilang's head and replied in that refined tone, "I know that I am a demon. I'm afraid the Peak Lord Shen's disciple tarried far too long in the human realm and forgot that we demons have never committed to keeping our promises. Of course, most of the time you guys don't do much more than pay some lip service to it either." With that final sentence, Tian Langjun's smile vanished from his lips. Shen Qingchu's vision went dark. Something hot and red pulsed about, pressing in on him from all sides, as if trapping him inside a tiny pocket. He was swallowed by Zhu Zhilang. When he woke, the air around him was dry and his throat felt scratchy. As Shen Qingchu rolled and sat up, he saw a dark-skinned demon girl next to him. When she noticed him waking, she shouted loudly in a heavily accented voice, "He's awake!" Tian Langjun lifted the curtains with one hand and peered in. He lifted his eyebrows. Peak Lord Shen has certainly slept long enough. Shen Qingchu kept his expression carefully blank as he wiped his face, making sure that there was no trace of reptile stomach juices remaining on him. The dry wind blowing outside made the curtains wave about wildly, allowing glimpses of the scenery outside of the carriage. He was now lying on top of a massive black-scaled snake. This massive snake was carrying a pavilion on its back as it slithered smoothly across the ground. Surrounding him were many beasts, large and small, as well as many demons with half-beastly forms. Together, these creatures merged into a chaotic but grand-scale army as they marched forwards. Shen Qingchu determined this was most likely the southern part of the demon world. The north once belonged to Mo Beijun but was now Luo Bing's territory. There, most of the demons had humanoid forms. The most beastly demons and half-beast hybrids were only common in the south, like some kind of animal kingdom. He didn't know where Tian Langjun was planning to lead this group of demons, or what he was planning to do. After he finished observing his surroundings, Shen Qingchu suddenly realized that the right side of his chest and his entire arm were still throbbing painfully and seemed to be moving rather sluggishly. He took a deep breath and mentally prepared himself so that he was 120% ready for whatever he might see. Then he looked down. The problem was even more serious than he thought. Like a prosthetic limb made of leaves and branches, every inch of his right arm was covered in green, fleshy leaves and sprouts, trembling slightly along the limb with every motion. All 5 fingers were completely numb, and he couldn't even curl them. After only a glance, he couldn't bear to look at it any longer. The Shuya sword was right beside him, and he was sorely tempted to just pick it up and hack the arm off entirely. Just then, Zhu Zhilang approached, holding a small, steaming gold stove. Shen Qingchu jumped as if he'd seen a ghost, instantly on high alert. "What are you doing?" Zhu Zhilang froze in place. This subordinate just wanted to help Master Shen. Shen Qingchu immediately began pointing towards his own mouth. This was the type of thing he was most scared of hearing from Zhu Zhilang. He'd already had his taste of a snake's gratitude. He was so grateful that he swallowed him whole in the end. Zhu Zhilang raised his trailing sleeves towards his face in a rather embarrassed gesture, as if trying to cover his own mouth. He then quickly put them down and tried to persuade Shen Qingchu in the most heartfelt manner. "Master Shen, you have to believe me. If the King Sea is not removed at least 7 times a day, the roots will be buried deep inside your flesh. But they've only been plucked 3 times today. It's the most critical moment right now. If we do not remove them now, then I'm afraid we will not be able to save Master Shen's arm." When he heard that he'd be in danger of losing a limb, Shen Qingchu couldn't hesitate any longer. No matter what shadows of reservation he was still holding in his heart, he immediately placed his arm out. Zhu Zhilang took out a burning red lump of coal from the stove. Then, holding it in his bare hands, he pressed it right up against Shen Qingchu's chest. Shen Qingchu was silent. He knew he shouldn't have expected Zhu Zhilang's help to be anything normal or sensible. The piece of coal pressed against the king's sea sprouts on his chest, causing them to wither and curl as they burned to their roots. It was so horrifying Shen Qingchu had to resist the urge to grimace at the sight. Only when Zhu Zhilang finally managed to burn off all the green shoots, one by one, could he finally stand to look at his arm again. Zhu Zhilang withdrew the piece of coal and said, "In the afternoon and evening, they'll need to be burned 3 more times." Shen Qingchu pulled his robes back over his shoulders. Zhu Zhilang unconsciously glanced up, then quickly turned his gaze down again. Outside, Tian Langjun laughed. "Silly child, what are you embarrassed about?" "He's right," Shen Qingchu thought to himself. "What do you have to be embarrassed about? Seeing this chest that was just covered in fleshy sprouts all over? Seeing this being that you just swallowed whole? What is there left to be embarrassed about?" Zhu Zhilang answered completely seriously. "My lord, please don't mock this subordinate. I do not have the slightest of intentions towards Master Shen." He looked towards Shen Qingchu and re-emphasized, "Absolutely none of Luo Binger's intentions. Why are you emphasizing that at me?" Zhu Zhilang quickly took his stove and leaped off the snake's back, returning down below to direct the troops marching about. Shen Qingchu's mind was a mess, his eyes beginning to dart quickly about, searching desperately. The Heart Devil Sword. Where was it? Where was the Heart Devil Sword? Oh, it was outside, lying next to Tian Langjun's seat. Thrown right down next to his feet. Shen Qingchu was about to roll over in laughter. This was the #1, most infamous sword of the proud immortal demon Wei, the ultimate trump weapon on both heaven and earth. Was it something that should be thrown about so carelessly like this? Tian Langjun was resting his chin in his hand, observing the scene in the distance. When he noticed Shen Qingchu's expression, he asked, "Peak Lord Shen, what are you looking at?" Quote, he followed his gaze downwards. "At this sword of mine?" Shen Qingchu answered calmly, "That is Luo Binger's sword." WuxaWorldAudio.com. Tian Langjun laughed it away easily and said, "Peak Lord Shen, there's something I've always wanted to ask you." Shen Qingchu replied, "Please, you can ask whatever you want, and I'll just answer randomly." Tian Langjun asked, "You and my son, have the two of you cultivated as partners?" Shen Qingchu was sure he heard wrong. "What did you say?" Tian Langjun patiently repeated himself. "I was asking Peak Lord Shen whether you and Luo Binger." Shen Qingchu's face twitched several times and he immediately put up his hand in a gesture to stop. Tian Langjun continued, "Or perhaps Peak Lord Shen doesn't understand what I mean by cultivating as partners. It means that..." Shen Qingchu interrupted, "That's enough. Could you have some sense of shame at least?" Shen Qingchu forced himself to remain calm. "Why would you believe that he and I have cultivated together?" Tian Langjun replied, "To be honest, I've always yearned to know more about the culture and customs of the human world." "So, how did yearning for human culture have anything to do with the question?" Tian Langjun held out a finger and shook it a few times to silence him. Then he hummed out a soft, charming little melody. Shen Qingchu was proud to hold himself as a proper gentleman, always in total control of his expressions. But the longer Tian Langjun continued humming, the harder it became to maintain his cold, dignified front. God. DN. Resentment of Chunshan. How did it become popular even in the demon realm? Tianlangjun hummed a full 2 verses before he was finally satisfied, but still seemed to want to continue. Only the illustrious spirit of the human world could produce such a stunning masterpiece. The boldly audacious plotline, the deep romanticism in each phrase, these are truly worthy of the highest praise. Especially at the end of every verse, it leaves you with a teaser, making it impossible for you to put down and leaving you eagerly awaiting more. Oh wow, the DMN thing was still being serialized. Shen Qingchu suddenly realized. Wait. Back when we first met in the Holy Mausoleum, you said, "I have long awaited the honor of meeting you." Single quote quote. Could it be that this was the long-awaited honor he was referring to? It was a reference to this bawdy love song. Tianlangjun replied with joy, "Indeed, that's exactly what I was referring to." System: chatting with the boss about interests and hobbies, increasing the villain's depth of character, B points plus 150. This was the most f-king absurd excuse for interests and hobbies. While the two of them continued to stare at each other, the young dark-skinned demon girl that had been looking after Shen Qingchu suddenly leaped up cheerfully like an antelope. Shen Qingchu turned to her and found that she really did have a pair of antelope legs. The girl jumped about, looked up and shouted cheerfully, "My lord, is the new place we're going to very nice?" Tianlangjun smiled and waved back at her. "Naturally, it will be the best place," the young girl asked rather innocently. "Is there a lot of water there?" Tianlangjun replied. "The rivers flow freely across every plain and mountain, covering all the lands beneath the open sky." The girl cheered and leaped off into the distance. Shen Qingchu watched as she left, contemplating the rather uneasy feeling he was getting. "Where are you taking him to?" Tianlangjun replied in his unhurried manner. "Peak Lord Shen has already drawn his own conclusions. No. Why ask for what you already know? Rivers through plains and mountains. These clearly weren't landforms belonging to the demon realm. This nice place was undoubtedly the human world." Shen Qingchu spoke. "Judging by the numbers alone, at least 20% of the demons of the south must be traveling in this group right now. Your Excellency, do you think such a group of such massive size will be able to simply cross the border without the cultivators noticing?" Tianlangjun replied. "Who said I was planning to cross over the border?" He straightened up and gave him a disdainful laugh. "What do you think I wanted this sword for?" Shen Qingchu replied. "You're planning to use the Heart Devil sword to open a crack between the two worlds." Tianlangjun corrected him. "To be accurate, it will be a merging of the two worlds. Merging the human and demon realms." End chapter.